Thank you, Dr. McCoy. I'd also like to thank Ray Gentry for inviting me to speak. I'd like to thank the U Club very much. You know you have a great event when you don't pay attention to who's working the room and how things work out. And when you have bad events, you notice how, and you realize how great the U Club does, and they do it in every event I've ever attended. Has been outstanding here. I'd also like to thank Alan Crone, my law partner, for helping to sponsor and shoulder the burden of the meal tonight. Alan is an executive employment lawyer. He represents businessmen and key members of management and various types of disputes, including non-compete litigation that y'all were talking about earlier, trade secret protection, and breach of contract claims. And it's not unusual for us to have clients literally all over the country. One of the reasons you may not know about our law firm or may not have ever heard our name is that a very significant portion of our practice is outside of Shelby County, whether it be large multi-party actions or representative actions. And Alan Crone has in the last few years carved out a niche as one of the nation's leading employment law mass action lawyers. And I'm very proud to be his law partner. Alan has a saying that he's had for many years that I think is very pertinent to our talk tonight. And that is one of his favorite catchphrases, and we're a firm that lives off of catchphrases and may be part of our generation, is that he advises clients to keep their powder dry. And he said it for so many times and in so many different situations over the years that it stuck with me, and I started using it. But until recently, I didn't have a great visualization of what that means. And I traveled last week to Gettysburg and Antietam. As part of that tour, we shared some time with a reenactor who literally showed us what keeping your powder dry meant in terms of soldiers holding their arms, or at the time of the Civil War. The different positions that one must carry a musket was very important, especially if it's raining. Because if the musket barrel gets wet, then they're carrying a 12-pound paperweight. Makes them quite defenseless in battle. Also, so that you have to carry the musket so. Also, when you load, you have to be very careful with your powder, which is on your hip. You have to put your powder into the gun, get out your steel rod, pack it, take out the steel rod, put it back in the rifle, in your musket, then fire. But if your powder is wet, it won't work. Again, a 12-pound paperweight, and you just become a target. Luckily, there are other targets for you, and there's plenty of them in the Civil War. Now, but also strategically, it can be exceptionally important in terms of what generals choose in terms of terrain. We toured Antietam last week, which was fabulous. You can read about a battle, but until you see the terrain, it won't make sense. One of the key places at Antietam is a bridge called Burnside Bridge, because General Burnside owned the bridge at the end of the battle. But it really shouldn't be named after him, because most of his men, or a large percentage of his men, got shot by a very small group of Georgia sharpshooters with some high ground right above the bridge. And why did the soldiers have to cross the bridge? The stream wasn't wide. It wasn't that deep. But what happens if someone has a misstep crossing a stream? What if a person trips and their powder and their ammunition get wet, or the musket gets wet? Too high of a price. So they had to cross the bridge. They had to cross the bridge in the face of sharpshooters just picking them off, one and one. And the Georgia sharpshooters held the Union troops for hours. So even though General Lee had to flee the battlefield, he inflicted tremendous damage on the Union forces, all because of the strategic need to keep their powder dry. which is very important for tonight's lessons because that's what we're going to talk about, is keeping your powder dry in a divorce. Now, I think it's clear everybody in this room has probably counseled somebody as part of a divorce and part of the divorce recovery process. And we all know how important divorce recovery is and how just a little bit of help can go a long way with someone facing such a devastating bridge in their life. Fear, guilt, anger. Where am I going to be next week, next month, next year? How's my life going to change? Can devastate people. There's nothing a lawyer can tell anyone in this room that would be helpful to divorce recovery. Even though I have people in my office over and over and over again in the throes of this agony and tragedy, and their spouses, the people that trusted them the most, or that they trusted the most just months earlier, is now filing affidavits in the courthouse saying the most vile things that they can think of to try to gain an advantage in custody litigation. What am I going to say to them to help them? I can't. I don't have the tools. I don't have the training. All I'm going to do is mess them up more. Unless I'm talking about one thing: helping them win their lawsuit. So we all know that divorce recovery should be left to the people who are trained to do that. Because I don't know when a client's seriously depressed, as opposed to just having a bad day. I don't know that. People in this room, uniquely qualified, experienced, trained to help people in divorce recovery. Let's compare that to divorce coaching. In the executive coaching universe, which is really the trailblazer in this area, is you've got a series of new mental health professionals and then non-mental health professionals helping executive coaches coaching executives on how to take a vision of where they are today and where they want to be in the future and help goal set, try to help give them some tools to succeed, and help them direct themselves through the executive process in their companies, whether they be the business owner or vice president, CEO, CFO, COO, it doesn't matter. And they may have individual issues that they need to deal with, but the context of the relationship isn't in terms of therapy. It's in terms of what I would call success management. And although there are divorce coaches out there, and if you hit the internet, you'll see, and there's plenty of people out there that are preaching, helping people coach them through the divorce. Many of the terms that they use on the internet are describing therapy, which that can be a different topic. But in the context of tonight's talk, what I'm going to talk about is the need for divorce coaching that's not therapy and not recovery related. But what I believe makes all the sense in the world is that mental health professionals who know about recovery also work with individuals to help give them new direction, help set goals, create a vision for the future, and help keep them in a certain range where they don't get too high, they don't get too low, and that they can make sound decisions for when the battle and the times get tough.